The Battle of the Bulge. After every major event in World War II, the Battle of the Bulge remains one of the biggest and bloodiest battles in the war, and ultimately tipped the scales in the favor of the Allies. The war itself started on September 1st, 1939, and ended September 2nd, 1945. More than 30 countries were involved in World War II, forming two main teams. The Axis powers, consisting of Germany, Italy, and Japan, along with Albania, Bulgaria, Finland, Hungary, Romania, and Thailand. Then there was the Allies, which mainly included the United States of America, Great Britain, and the Soviet Union. Originally, Romania, Bulgaria, Finland, and Italy were all allied with Germany, but switched sides before the war ended. In addition, the Soviet Union was also initially allied with Germany, but switched sides when Germany broke their alliance and attacked them. It was 1944, 6 months after the D-Day invasion at Normandy beaches, and the Allies were celebrating their victory. However, Adolf Hitler, the leader of the Nazi Party, believed that Germany had one last chance to strike at the Allies in the West. As a result, Hitler ordered his commanders and General Field Marshal Gerd von Rundstedt to prepare to attack against the weak spot in the Allied line located in a forested region known as the Ardennes region between Belgium and Luxembourg. Their objective was to break through the Allied lines, capture the Belgian city of Antwerp, and force the Allies into a peace treaty. Hitler hoped to negotiate terms with the Allies and avoid an unconditional surrender, allowing him to continue the war with Russia in the East. On December 16, 1944, Germany launched the Battle of the Bulge. While the Germans were moving forward, their push created a bulge in the front lines, a curved shape sticking out from the surface of the ground. The bulge extended deep into the Allies' territory and essentially gave the battle its name. The Germans made significant progress in the early days of the battle due to the Allies' lack of preparation. When the night arrived, the Germans carefully and strategically moved the tank divisions and artillery forces to the front lines. On December 17, 1944, the Germans took control of Malmedy and captured 113 U.S. troops who were mostly from Battery B of the 285th Field Artillery Observation Battalion. The Germans lined them up in a field and shot them. Some of the men were able to fake death or escape to the forest, but 84 men died that day. News of the massacre spread quickly among the Allies and strengthened their ability to defeat the Germans.
We were ordered to surrender. The Germans had us encircled. They had stolen our medical tent, all our supplies, and they had completely destroyed everything they could find around us. We were given an order by the German commander to surrender or be annihilated. Von Rundstedt was his name. We had a commander by the name of General McAuliffe. When he received the German ultimatum on paper, he wrote 4 letters on that paper, N-U-T-S, and handed it to the German courier, who ran it back to the German general, who looked at it and said to his courier, "Was is this? I do not understand this. What is this?" And his courier told him, "Sir, I told you, I'll tell you what it means. It means go to hell." And he opened up with tank fire all around the place and hammered us back into our foxholes while trees were falling and shells were firing all over the place. And they just came that way night and day. And then the Stuka dive bombers, the German fighter planes, came along at night and hit us from the air and took pictures of what was happening in the Bulge.
In the Battle of the Bulge, many soldiers fought while facing numerous challenges, one of them being harsh weather conditions. The soldiers had to endure freezing temperatures, heavy snow, and limited visibility. In addition, the soldiers who were in Battle of the Bulge faced significant health risks due to the harsh winter conditions. Prolonged exposure to cold temperatures combined with wet and unsanitary conditions made them vulnerable to illnesses such as frostbite, hypothermia, and respiratory infections. Temperatures plunged to -20 calculus, or -4 Fahrenheit, and soldiers who didn't die of hypothermia were crippled by frostbite and trench foot.
During the Bulge, command broke down, supplies broke down, morale broke down, communications broke down, everything broke down. It was every man for himself.
In many cases, injured soldiers had to be evacuated to field hospitals or medical facilities further away from the front lines for a more vast treatment. Medical units worked tirelessly to treat and evacuate the sick and injured soldiers, but the extreme colds caused a constant threat to their health.
My name is Eileen Stavrosh. I am the daughter of David Ellison, who was a veteran of World War II, Battle of the Bulge. My father was shot in Battle of the Bulge. He said it was so cold when he was fighting, he didn't even know he was shot. That's how cold it was. His whole life he had, the only thing he would ever talk about was the bullet wound that he had on his arm, the scar that he had on his arm. And he didn't even know if the bullet went through him, went out, was still in his body. All again because he said it was just so cold when he was there.
When medics ran out of supplies, life-saving amputations had to be performed with kitchen knives and cognac as the only anesthesia.
You were having trouble breathing because the snow was suffocating you. And consequently, we lost a lot of men who froze to death.
He wasn't moving too much. We was sitting in the foxholes almost all day without walking. And your feet would get cold without even you knowing it, you know. And finally, I got there where my feet started turning color, you know. So they sent me back to the aid station. So I get back to the aid station, which is just some old house. And I gets in the front door there, and here lays the guy on the stretcher there. His leg blown off right at the knee, you know, not saying a word. And I didn't see the doctor. Doctor was in another room. And I thought, boy, you must be tougher than hell. You laying there with your leg blown off and not saying a word.
Although some soldiers had winter gear, such as heavy winter coats, insulated boots, wool socks, and gloves, many times the lack of proper winter gear and the constraint on their bodies further increased the risk of falling ill.
We were inadequately clothed. We didn't have rubber overshoes. We didn't have overcoats. We didn't have gloves. We didn't have scarves. My boots were so bad, I would strip newspapers and drapery off of these bombed out houses and wrap my feet in it.
Every veteran I've talked to has said, cold first. I says, well, what about the fighting? Well, that was there, but it was cold. They always come back to the cold. This is a GI, 1944-45 cold weather gear. If you notice, he has an overcoat on, and that was issued to all soldiers. This is an extremely heavy overcoat, between probably 8 and 10 pounds. But also he has an Army issue muffler, and below this, he would actually be layered. He would probably have a sweater, and the sweater would actually be able to be pulled up back over the back of the neck. And under his helmet, he would have the Jeep cap, and the Jeep cap he could wear under the helmet and pull that around, and that would cover his ears. This soldier has a pair of gloves, but what was more often the norm was the combat mittens. And the combat mittens was standard knitted mitten, although it had one modification. Not only have the thumb, but would have the index finger, so he could actually pull the trigger to his M1 Garand.
His pants were usually wool. They had long johns that they could wear, and just a leather boot with his wool socks. Some units were told not to wear their overcoats because they were long, and the Germans had long overcoats. The visibility was not all that great with the fog and the snow, and if you saw somebody with an overcoat on, sometimes you'd engage them as a target. You didn't want to be subject to friendly fire. A lot of them have a field jacket like this. It's short, it's got a wool lining to it, and then some of them had the newer version of the field jacket, which did have a quilted liner. A lot of them went into battle with really summer and fall uniforms.
You were probably very lucky to have this jacket here, which is an actual jacket from the first ID, that time period. You can see right under the jacket there is that knitted sweater. So they did have some protection, but it was extremely cold. They're not only in combat, but they're dealing with the elements. And the Bulge lasted from the 16th of December all the way up to the 15th of January. So it was in the middle of winter that the fighting was going on.
I've known some veterans of the Bulge, and every winter they'll say, I've never been warm since 1944.
Additionally, soldiers use sleeping bags, blankets, and some use heated tents to stay warm during rest periods. To add, soldiers had to face a constant enemy fire, artillery bombardments, and the risk of being captured or wounded. Food and supply shortages and difficulties added to the challenges they faced. Broken terrain also caused movement and communication to be difficult.
Marching from one place to another place, and the incident I tripped, we had to go through some snow pretty bad, and this little road we was on, there's a wire across in front of me, and I didn't really see it, and I tripped and fell. And when I fell in that snow, the guy behind me, he moved up to where I was at. I mean, that's about 8 or 10 feet apart. And when I moved up there, this guy behind me, he moved up where I was supposed to be. And the shell come in where I was at, and it was, and blowed him all to pieces. And that was supposed to have been me back there. Because I fell and slipped, they marched on ahead of me. And but that's one time I had. But if I had a fail, I'd have been right up there where that shell got this. Yeah, but that's like I say, it's part of it.
The soldiers relied on maps, compasses, and their knowledge of the area to navigate their way. In some cases, they had to clear paths through the snow and ice in order to make the movement easier. Frost covered much of the soldiers' equipment, and tanks had to be broken out of the ice after they froze to the ground overnight. In addition, engineers played a crucial role in constructing bridges and repairing roads that facilitate the movement of troops and supplies. During the Battle of the Bulge, Allied military leaders took decisive actions to counter the German offensive. They quickly assessed the situation, strategized, and coordinated their forces to mount a strong defense. General Dwight D. Eisenhower, the Supreme Allied Commander, played a crucial role in directing the overall Allied response. He worked closely with his subordinate commanders, such as General Omar Bradley and General George Patton, to deploy reinforcements, reposition troops, and launch counterattacks. As the Germans advanced, they conquered many towns and roads. Specifically, the capture of Bastogne was one of the main primary goals in Battle of the Bulge. Bastogne is located in the Belgian Ardennes in the east of province of Luxembourg. The Germans wanted this specific area for a few reasons, but one of the many was because Bastogne provided a road junction in a rough area where only a few roads existed, and it would open up a pathway further north for German expansion. On December 25, 1944, the weather improved. It gave the Allied troops much-needed hope and fueled the American resolve to hold out in Bastogne. At this time, George Patton sent his 4th Armored Division in a 19-hour, 150-mile-long journey north. They were sent to provide support for the 101st Airborne that was being surrounded by Germans at Bastogne and began their assault towards Bastogne as soon as they arrived. Patton sent another army, and his 3rd Army arrived a day later to provide much-needed troop reinforcements. Within 24 hours, the Allied forces were able to break through the German lines surrounding Bastogne and ending the siege. It was an attempt by the German Air Force to regain air superiority so the Germans could resume their advance through the Ardennes.
Bright, sunny, cold day, quiet. So 5 guys are standing in there, just small talk. When all of a sudden mortar shells come in on the top, hits the trees, shrapnel comes down. And in a matter of 10 seconds, one fellow is killed. The other fellow lost an arm. 2 other guys got heavy shrapnel. And I'm standing there with a 1/2-inch cut on my hand. You say, why me?
The German Air Force successfully bombed Allied airfields, destroying several grounded planes, but the Allies were able to replace the planes within a week. On January 3, 1945, Hitler stopped sending supplies and reinforcements to German troops. As a result, the Germans had to slowly retreat from the area. On January 16, 1945, the U.S. 1st and 3rd Armies were able to link back up along with the British 2nd Army for the first time since the battle began. They successfully attacked the Germans near the Maas River, pushing the Germans further back. By January 25, 1945, the Germans were pushed completely out of the region and the front line looked the way it did before the battle began. At the end of the battle, the U.S. Army reported roughly 19,000 U.S. soldiers died, 47,500 were wounded, and more than 23,000 were missing. The British suffered 1,400 casualties, with 200 killed. The Germans had 100,000 soldiers killed, wounded, or captured. In addition, the German forces suffered heavy losses in manpower, equipment, and supplies, which they could not easily replace. Ultimately, the Allied victory in the Battle of the Bulge set the stage for the final defeat of Nazi Germany and the end of World War II in Europe.